What is the common ingredient for long-term farm staff retention, problem solving, and effective farm relationships? Find out as we talk with farmer and ag mediator Stacy Entel on this episode of Food, Flowers, and Fun. If you're the woman who does it all, farm work, housework, bookwork, homework, getting up at the break of dawn, this is the podcast for you.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Get away from the cares of the day. Restock, rootstock, feedstock, seed stock. Chat with women around the world who raise food, flowers, and fun. With your host, Kay Castrataro. That's me. Welcome back to Food, Flowers, and Fun, visits with farm women from around the world. And as always, we are sponsored by Penlight for Farmers, who is helping to create purposeful farm lives full of time, energy, and abundance. Today, we have a really special guest. Stacy Entel is with Land and Sea Together. She does some ag mediation coordination. She's got a varied background in agriculture. And so we're just going to jump in. Welcome, Stacy. Thanks for joining us.
Hello, I'm so excited.
So why don't you just hop right in? You know, I'm terrible at the small talk. I tell people that all the time. I really should learn how to just do the, how are you doing? But I don't. So just jump right in and tell us how you get into the world of agriculture and how you get into ag mediation.
Sure. So I was thinking today, I'm like, this is my 11th year of farming. So my background is in organic vegetables. And I had gotten into farming because I had been working as a teacher and took a job as a camp counselor at a farm that also had an educational program. And then I very quickly was like, oh, this is exactly what I want to be doing, and got into the production side. So I've been farming all across New England for the last decade. And right around COVID time, I saw a posting from the Center for Mediation, which holds Land and Sea Together, looking for someone to do some outreach for their agricultural mediation program. And I thought, well, that sounds really interesting. And like a lot of farmers, it's always really awesome to pick up some additional work here and there.
Wait a minute. You mean we sometimes need some extra money?
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
And I had never heard of agricultural mediation, which was sort of shocking to me now that I know a lot about it.
Right.
And once I learned more about the value of mediation and what it could provide to the farming community, I got really interested and I got trained in mediation.
So let's pause here for a moment, if you don't mind. I do this. Sure. I just jump in and interrupt.
No, it's great.
So I also was trained as a mediator with CMCRI, the Community Mediation Center of Rhode Island, and found it to be an absolutely incredible process. So for the farmers who are listening, who maybe are not familiar with mediation, and maybe are not quite comfortable with how that whole process works, would you do us a favor and do a deep dive into what mediation looks like, how it helps farmers? I loved what you said about how supportive it can be for farmers. So let's unpack that a little bit for those who are not familiar with it.
Yeah, sure. So the first step is there's either some kind of conflict or something. It doesn't even have to be conflict. There's a sticky something that you need to be negotiating with another party. Maybe that's a lease, maybe that's a disagreement with a neighbor. You're trying to be a good neighbor, and it's something that you're like, I could just really use a neutral, confidential third party to sort of hold this space for me. Maybe I've tried to have this conversation one-on-one and it's sort of deteriorated, or you just know that having a conversation in a space that is neutral can be really beneficial. So So what ends up happening is you would reach out to me, and we would hear from each party about, hey, like, just give me a really basic overview about what's going on. And then we would set up a time for you and that other party to meet somewhere neutral, probably the center for mediation. And there will be a trained mediator there, usually someone who has some experience in the agricultural world and conversations. But it won't be someone who knows either of you personally, or has any stake in the outcome. The only outcome we're looking for you is for you to come to an agreement together on what can help you move on and move forward in a way that feels good for both of you.
Yeah, so I want to really highlight that because that was one of the really, there are a lot of key things that I learned in mediation
Mhm.
training, and that was one of them. The idea that as the mediator, even if you are looking at a situation and you think you know what the best solution is,
Yeah.
it is actually your responsibility to stay out of that circle, and that's not it. So if the parties agree on something that you look at and you're like, I don't think this is a good idea, but the parties are happy with it,
Mhm.
it's actually your responsibility to let them do that. Now, you do
Totally.
something called truth testing, right? So are there times when people might be suggesting something and you're like, I'm not sure that this is a great idea. How do you handle it so that you are doing due diligence and giving them the best service that they can get?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities to kind of go back through the ideas that have come up. Like part of what I'm doing is also note taking and making sure we're all on the same page about what was discussed. So maybe we have these 5 bullet points that we're like, okay, here's what we want to do moving forward. Another part of my role is trying to see where the cracks might be. So we might say, okay, well, Bob's going to be responsible for the fence line. Well, I say, okay, what are the details for that? When is he going to do that? How frequently, and by what date does it need to be done? And what standard feels good for you? So trying to see with that, with both parties, like where might we get off the tracks, and
Mm,
trying to make it be as concrete and detailed as possible, so we're not leaving that conversation with one person thinking it's going to be one thing and one person thinking it's going to
yeah.
be another. So that's sort of one of the roles I see as a mediator, is how can we help you just make it all the way to the finish line with whatever goals you did set for yourself.
Right, right. Because how many times, like being a fifth generation farm kid myself, I've seen a lot of succession planning, and
Mm-hmm,
that I know that that's a very big issue that people will go
mm-hmm,
to ag mediation for. And and what I see a lot in ag mediation is that or I mean, in succession planning, is that the families will be like, oh, yeah, well, we're going to maybe transfer a certain percentage of the business every year. And then the time comes to do that and it doesn't happen. And
mm-hmm,
then nobody really follows up on it. And so then you've got this like plan, but then the plan breaks down and there's no
mm-hmm.
process for what happens if somebody's not fulfilling their end of the bargain. So what do you put into a plan that helps to make sure that that scenario is addressed? Because, we're all human and we all, maybe Bob's
Yeah.
supposed to be doing the fence line by the beginning of April and, his wife gets sick and he's busy taking care of her. And so now it's like May and the fence isn't done and then he's distracted with other things. And so what happens then? What do you do?
Oh, great question. I think also sometimes putting in the communication piece throughout the course of the year, where okay, that's not necessarily a hard, like, okay, it's a fence line, but being like, okay, we're going to meet quarterly and check
Mhm.
in on if we're hitting these benchmarks, or if there is something like an emergency that comes up where, okay, like someone gets sick or there's this, do we have a relationship now at this point where there is trust and we do believe that there are good intentions and that we can
Mm.
keep this moving, but nobody gets surprised. So sometimes having that piece written into the conversation. Um, and I think you can always come back to us too. Like it's not like it's a one and done. Like we might start off with 1 2 hour session. And with my colleague Laurel, who does exclusively succession planning with the mediation lens, it can be years long of multiple sessions. So, we might have a setback, but then we come back together and check in and see. And I think once folks leave, ideally, it's in their hands. and and often sometimes by the time people come to us, they are looking to move forward
Yeah.
because they might
They're done.
have
They're
been,
done with the situation as it is.
yes, they've been
They're
stewing.
invested in a change.
Exactly. They've been stewing within themselves and realizing we're not getting anywhere. So by the
Yeah.
time they're like, oh God, we have to like talk about this outside of the family. We have to engage these people.
Yeah.
They often will walk away feeling relieved because it feels like there's been another step we can take, and it feels like there's momentum now that we can step forward. And it's been professionalized in a way where, you know, all of those potential family dynamics and, like the little sibling and this, and,
Yeah.
we're coming in trying to make sure that everyone's voice is heard and that we're looking at it from a bird's eye view and asking questions that maybe haven't been asked before. And
I love what you just said about their voices being heard. That
mhm,
was percolating in the back of my mind, and then you said it, and I was like, "Oh, we are
mhm,
just so in sync." But there is a sense in which um, we can have lots of conversations with somebody, and yet nobody's really being heard because
totally.
we're so busy trying to get people to understand our perspective that we're not listening to the other person's perspective. And what happens when we're doing that is that the person that we're trying to convince is so busy feeling unheard that they're
Hmm.
blocked off to what you're saying. And they're just like, but you're not listening to me. You're not listening
Yeah.
to me. And one of the beauties of the mediation process is that each party gets a space to just say what they need to say without being interrupted, without having judgment put on it. Like the other
Hmm.
party just has to listen. And there
Hmm.
is something about just being able to speak your piece that gives you that sense of being heard and understood. Right before we started, I told her that Vavochka would probably jump up here. And here he is. There's his tail, everybody. Which I know is your favorite part of my cat.
uh,
But
yeah.
then that takes so much of the pressure off. And I have seen that people start to actually understand motives
Hmm.
that they didn't understand before because we can interpret people's actions based on what's going on inside of us, and what might be driving them could be very, very different. And
Right. You might have a
sometimes,
totally different narrative about why
yeah,
this person's behaving the way they are. You don't know, you don't know that maybe their wife is sick, like that example that you were talking about before.
yeah,
You
yeah.
just
If
know
Bob
that the
doesn't
mowing
tell
didn't
you,
happen.
if Bob doesn't come and talk to you and say, "Hey, my wife is really sick and I haven't had time and I'm stressed
Hmm.
out," and
Hmm.
you're just seeing the fence not getting done, then you're
Yeah.
like, "Well, see,
Yeah.
again, Bob doesn't care about our commitment, doesn't care
Hmm.
about our relationship. This is all a
Yeah.
one-sided thing." And that's not it at all. It's that he's got something really big going on and he doesn't have the energy for the fence.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's just not a priority right now.
Yeah.
So I love that. I absolutely love that. Um, so in a real quick way, because we don't want to stay on, I mean, I love mediation, so I could stay here all day.
Hmm.
But I'd like to, learn more about your farming background and all that as well, and how you take care of yourself. So maybe if you could just give us some of the real benefits that you've seen in ag mediation, and some of, you talked about a couple of situations, but maybe just give the people a few ideas of, you know, when they might benefit from it, because I think that people have an idea that ag mediation is a last ditch effort. And
Hmm.
it's something that you do when the relationship is broken down so much that you can't talk to each other. And there is obviously a place for it then. But I think that I think ag mediation can be really helpful way before that. And it doesn't
Totally.
have to have that stigma of, wow, we're a failure because we can't talk through this issue together. Like
Hmm.
because that I feel like that's a feeling that farmers have that keep them from mediation. Can you speak to that a little?
Yeah, sure. Oh man, I think like I totally agree that it doesn't have to be a conflict, like to be beneficial. Like you can come if you're and negotiate a lease with us, and you might have an amazing relationship with the landowner. And this is just the first time you're coming together, or maybe you're starting a business with someone,
Mm.
and
Oh, that's a
you
really
just,
good one.
yeah,
Couple
and
of friends who
oh,
want to go into
exactly.
a business working
Mhm.
together on the farm, and maybe one of them's
Yeah.
got certain assets and another's got other assets. Oh, that's a great
Yeah.
example.
And it's just an opportunity to have 2 hours in a space with someone who is trained, like I said, to also be like, oh, well, what happens if this happens and who's gonna, and
Yeah.
then you'll walk away with a document that you generated together that you can say, oh, okay, this is what we're gonna be aiming for. This is our goal. And we've sort of gotten out ahead of some potential
Yeah.
challenges.
And sometimes it might be like, oh, we hadn't really considered this and we wouldn't really enjoy working together as much as we think.
Mhm.
And,
Yes.
you know, uh, that feels like a failure for people as well, but I would argue that that's like one of the biggest wins. Like
Yes.
if you can head off a bad partnership, and by bad I don't mean like either party is bad or
Yeah.
that working together is necessarily bad, but if you can prevent yourself from getting into a situation that's going to end up being way more stressful and less productive than you thought it was going to be before you do it, like amen to that, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Especially if you can walk, because for me, one of the things I see is relational repair. So it's both like relational care in the beginning of like, okay, before we even enter into this business agreement or this lease, like I value our relationship. So how can we keep it
Yeah.
healthy and intact? And then once there has been a rupture and there is this disagreement, like you said, just having the space sometimes to be like, seen and witnessed and hear why
Mm.
I've gotten to this point in this conflict. It what I've seen is just a lot of relief from people. Like, okay, like, you know, that was really hard, but it needed to happen, and now we can move forward and we can,
Mm.
see each other in the farming world or in our home or whatever it is, or with and we did our best to take care of that and to repair it and feel heard, and now we can move forward in a
Right.
positive way.
Right. Yeah, and I love that. I love that emphasis on relationship because I do
Mhm.
believe that our relationships make or break us and that it's
Totally.
those are the things that keep us healthy. They're the things that support us, and they can also be the things that destroy our sense of self, our ability to function in the world. Like it's really important to have that. And so when you have a relationship that has broken down and then there's a free resource designed
Mhm.
just for you that you
Yeah.
can go and talk about it and repair that. I think that it's amazing. And sometimes the repair is just that, wow, okay, we've said our piece and maybe you're never going to be best friends, maybe like,
Yes.
but I love
We
what you
can
said
walk
about
away.
we can
Yeah.
separate and not hate each other, and we can
Hmm.
meet each other on the street at a
Hmm.
farming event, at the grocery store, and not be like, oh my gosh, I gotta hide from that person because
Yes.
what am I
I
gonna
know.
say? You know?
Rhode Island's a small state.
Yeah, right?
Massachusetts is a small state. Like you're gonna see each other,
New England is
like,
small. You're gonna find people that you're like, what?
yeah, yeah.
Any
And
ag
like,
conference you go to, you're gonna see
yes,
all the same people.
yeah. And like I was thinking too when we were chatting, like so many of us are not taught how to communicate or be in conflict. Like I know I certainly like when I took the mediation classes, like this is blowing my mind. Like there that there is a language around communication, that there you can formalize it in a way that still feels really authentic, that it is a real conversation, but it's a skill that you can learn, is how to
Yes.
communicate. like whether that's as a farm owner with your crew or in a like partnership, whether that is like a marital farm ownership or, just a business partner. It's this learned skill. And like when you see that demonstrated by people that have been guiding mediation for 20, 30 years or whatever it is, and
It's
even just in a
magical.
few
It's
sessions,
almost
it is,
magical.
it
Like,
really is. Like
yeah,
it feels so scary. Like I had never heard of mediation. What is it? Is this what is this? And it's really just a space where someone who is trained in communication can hold that space for you, make sure every party is heard without having any preconceived notion of what people are coming in with. And we really only have a very basic idea of the conflict. It's
mhm,
it's all what we're going to hear from you in that session. And then we're trained to just help you get through and figure out what the
right.
next steps are. It's way less intimidating than
Yes.
you think once you get in there. It's a very held space by very trained, calm, helpful people.
Well, I mean, I've probably told this story on here before, but when my ex and I were getting divorced, we had um, like a custody
Mhm,
disagreement. Like I wanted custody, he wanted to be involved in the custody. We were dealing with a custody thing.
mhm,
And we finally ended up being given the option for mediation. And so we did it with a court mediator, who I
mhm,
think was also a lawyer. She was textbook. Like I had already been trained in mediation. And I sat in that room and I watched what she did. And I was like, this woman is textbook. Like, this is exactly how we were taught to do it. And she had the wisdom to look and to be like, what do you really want?
mhm,
The solution that you think is going to give you what you want, that's not going to give you what you want. What you
mhm,
really want is this. So, this solution, forget about that solution. That solution's not going to happen for you because that's not going to give you a happy outcome.
mhm,
These are the things you're looking for. And it was just beautiful to have somebody do that because we do come in thinking, well, I want this. I
mhm,
want, I have the end game in mind. And if you're
mhm,
focused so much on that end game, there isn't room to realize that there might be a better solution that's going to give you more of what you want and less of
mhm.
what you don't want.
Yeah.
So that's what I love about the process. I truly, truly do it. And having learned it and then being a participant in it was
Mhm,
very, very powerful because I was able to
mhm,
experience it on both sides and to just
mhm,
feel like there is something really beautiful about having this space and having somebody who is trained in this particular form of communication. That's the other thing. Like, this isn't marriage counseling, this isn't
mhm.
relational counseling. This is kind of a more targeted, there is a goal that we're trying to accomplish. How do we
Yeah.
accomplish this goal?
Mhm,
So, for longer term counseling type things, there are better and different options. But if you're
mhm,
looking at very specific things, we're looking at whether we should form a business partnership. We're
mhm.
thinking about a succession plan. We're, dealing with a specific conflict. Those are really excellent opportunities for mediation. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I love it.
Mhm.
So, with that in mind, how did you talk to us a little bit about your farming background that got you into this and how did you get it associated with land and sea together? Like you saw the ag mediation, but how has that relationship developed and what are some of the benefits of that to farmers as well?
Yeah. Let's see. So farming, I had done 4-H as a kid, but I had no idea that you could farm full time. I wasn't, like embedded in the farming community. I'm a first generation farmer, like a lot of people of my age group. And yeah, like I said, once I sort of had the gateway experience and I looked around and saw people, a decade
That's-
older than
That
me.
sounds like such an addiction.
I know it is.
It
I
was a
know.
gateway experience.
I
And
know.
it's not quite wrong.
I
I,
know.
I do say that about farming, that we farm because we're addicted.
It's so true. I really can't imagine doing anything else. Like it
Yeah.
was within within the first week, I truly like within the first week of being at that farm educational space and seeing that there were people a decade older that were this was their full-time job. Like there was also an operational farm, there was the educational space. I quit my teaching job within a week. And
Wow.
I
Wow.
was like, great,
Yep,
we're
yep.
doing
You
this.
were addicted. And the DNA, I told somebody just recently,
Yeah.
I'm like, the DNA is there. I think you either have it or you don't. And it's just that it hasn't expressed itself yet. And once you have that
Yeah.
thing that like turns on that gene, watch out.
Yeah. And that's totally, and that was that, you know? And so now here we are, like I did a farm apprenticeship and now I've been at the farm that I'm currently at. So I'm at Heart Beets Farm in Berkley. So shout out there. And I've been there for five years. So I'm the we're so small. So it's like, what's my title? I think we said I'm the field manager. But it's it's just been such a wonderful place. We're all very committed to just local, growing really good, hearty, healthy food for people. And personally, we're really committed to work life balance, which was really different for me in a lot of ways because I had just been on that hustle track of like, I've got to grind, I'm gonna, and very really, it's like farming is a really financially fraught career to choose. So I'm like, okay, like I've got to make my way to be like a farm manager, or I've got to be a farm owner, or I've got to get to that place. And then
Oh,
it was
here we are with those goals that like you think that this is where you need to be, but maybe you
yeah,
need a different approach. Wow.
exactly. Yeah. And then, as I got older and I said, I'm so happy in the role that I am in, which is being super valued at work,
Mm.
leaving, like my boss, the day is done when his kids get off the bus, and like that was a culture of, you've got to go to the dentist. Like that's great. Like that's fine, and really cultivating that sense of farming is your career and your profession and your calling, but you also have other things that motivate you and drive you and give you a sense of value and worth. And um, I just found that to be really revelatory and really healthy for me.
So,
And
can you talk to us a
yeah.
little bit about how that plays out? Because, I hear we're off work when the kids get off the bus, and my kids are off the bus at 2:30.
Hmm.
Now, growing up on a farm, there was no way we ever stopped, especially during the growing season. Like we never stopped at 2:30. We went
Yeah.
until daylight was gone, and then we worked in the lights under the barn. Or I can remember, oh my gosh, I can remember us using the pickup truck lights so
Hmm.
that, and we were grading apples like out in front of the barn. Why we were doing it in front of the barn instead of in the barn, I'm really not sure. I'm sure there was a good reason. There was probably like a hay wagon in there with
Yeah.
a load of hay that needed to get
Yeah.
unloaded as well, or some fool thing. I don't know. But I can remember working in front of those lights and just thinking, this is the way farming is. Like
Hmm.
it's the way it is. And you're describing something that even in my very broad understanding of agriculture and being like, let's make farming work for the farmers. There is a natural resistance to me that's like, wait, how does that work? So can you
Totally.
tell me how it works? Because I think people need to really be able to see what that picture is, that you can actually do something like that and
Yeah.
be effective and productive.
Yeah. And I will say it was not overnight. Like, so my boss is Steve Murray, and he's a few years older than me. We're in our late 30s.
Mhm.
And so Steve's first 15 years of farming didn't look like that. So it really, that was a goal that he set of,
Mm.
it was very intentional of how can we get to this point? And I think one thing we've talked about as a group, um, one of my colleagues just had a baby, but within the last few years, there's been this core group of us, my boss, my colleague Lauren, and myself, who are all very experienced growers in our
Hmm.
30s, early 40s, who just and who have stayed with Steve, stayed at the farm, and have been working with him for 5 years, 10 years.
Yeah,
That
which is that in and of itself, that longevity is another
exactly.
component where I want to ask you how that has happened because you mentioned feeling valued
Yes.
and that's a struggle for some farm help. So so much to tease
Yeah.
out, but
I
let's
know.
look at the scheduling first and maybe we can't separate them. Maybe there
Yeah,
is
I think
something
it
about
is
his concern for
exactly.
his employees that makes this able to work.
Yeah. And I think that is part of it is that, there's not a lot, at least at this stage, there hasn't been a lot of need for like, okay, we have to reteach everybody. Like we're all able to go off and work independently. Like Steve can be on the tractor. I can be in the greenhouse trellising tomatoes. Lauren can be doing cultivating. We're all very independent. It's, independent farmers that are going off, able to do what they need to do and come
But
back.
working with a goal in mind. So you have
Yeah.
how do you connect that? How do you decide who's doing? Because now I'm going to get into the nuts and bolts of it because I
Yeah.
think this is really important for that time and energy management piece of what I we've just talked relationships, which is huge for me. Now
Yeah.
we're going to talk time and energy. I love this.
Yes.
So how do you all know what everybody needs to do on a given day? What
Yeah.
system do you have in place for that?
Um, Steve holds that. So like we'll get like hey, we get an email on Sunday being like, hey, here's our weekly goals for the week. Like
Wow.
here's what
What
we're hoping.
did he come to farming from a different background? I'm curious.
No, he was a student at UMass Dartmouth and did an internship at like 20 at
Okay.
a farm, and then he's been farming ever since.
Oh, I
But
love
and
his approach. This is great. Take notes.
yeah,
Take notes, listeners out there, because these are
yeah,
all really good things that I would be telling you to do too,
yeah. Um,
that I
so
need
we
to
have
perfect
like
for
a
myself.
general, yeah, we have like a general idea of where we're going for the
Yeah.
week, and then in the morning, Steve will be like, okay, we're starting with this. I'm going to be here, and we're all kind of like we have our phones on us, so we're texting throughout the
Okay.
day. I'm like, oh, okay, I just finished, trellising the tomatoes. I noticed that XYZ needs weeding or like this greenhouse tunnel needs irrigation. And he's like, oh, okay, great, do that. And then meet me here. So it's both,
So a
we have,
communication piece, that
yeah,
communication piece is something I'm really hearing that it's not only it's not only desired but expected that everybody is checking in on a
mm-hmm,
regular basis and also taking responsibility for noticing if something's being missed. So there's
yes,
like this is not your farm help who shows up, puts in their time and is not invested and leaves. Like that's not the kind of environment
yeah,
that you guys are
exactly.
working
Like
under. Yeah.
whenever I'm describing, like I never know to say, like Steve is my friend also. Like we're in
Yep.
the same, which might is unique because you might have, we're all the same age, we have a lot of the same experience. So that's not going to be the dynamic of every farm where maybe you just have college help and but I always just feel like even if I'm not the owner, like I am a peer and I'm respected in that way. So if I say, hey, I'm noticing some disease on the spinach, like keep an eye on that. Like I
Hmm.
feel totally I don't think anything of that. Whereas if
And he is humble enough, and I'm going to use that word
exactly
humble
totally.
because it is a very difficult thing for an owner of any business, but
Mm-hmm.
somebody in a position of authority, especially a man. So, I mean,
I
there are a
yes.
lot of things going on here. You have a man in
Yes.
authority who is the owner, and he has
Mm-hmm.
created a culture where a woman who is an
Mm-hmm.
employee
Mm-hmm.
who has skills is free to express what's going on, and that is both taken in and you keep using the word valued, like, so
Yes.
there is something that he is showing you or doing that makes you not only feel comfortable in communicating to him, but to know that there's an appreciation on his side for that. Can you tease that out? Like, what is it that he does that makes you feel valued? Because I think that's super important for us as business owners.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. And I do think coming into the farm, like he ha the, I think most are like my other coworker, Lauren, it was a very like female pot, like a lot of his employees are really great female farmers.
Yeah.
And that's that's great, you
Yeah.
know. And I think also, we are when we're having a converse, it's always a conversation. Like if it's like, hey, I noticed that this is going on in the carrots, let's all go and look at it, or
Ah,
he'll notice something. Or and one thing that we do every year too is we check in the winter and we take a whole day, like, and just go through every crop. We talk about different systems. We say, oh, that like the onion weeding, it just is.
the disaster this year.
Yes, exactly. That's my one thing I always come back to. And it's never, I have never seen Steve angry. I have
Mm.
never seen him kick a tractor wheel. I've never seen him, nothing. It's
We got to get
never,
Steve on here about
I know,
emotional
truly.
regulation.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, like he's just a very even, having a space where your employer is calm, is
Regulated. Yeah.
respectful, is open, is humble, is welcoming, and is just like every day is very pleasant. Like even if we're having a day that is very physically hard, I never leave work feeling emotionally fraught. I always feel like, oh, I just had a really nice day with my friends, you know? And
Wow.
like, and so for me, like I come from like a no-till background and which is a very different farm than the farm I'm
It's a
at.
different management. It's a very different,
Totally.
it's its own management approach.
Yes.
Yes.
But the benefit of working for Steve and with that group of people far outweighed what I thought I was going to do. I was like, oh, I'm going to work in this sort of farming framework. And I realized, what's way more important to me is working with good people and
Oh,
improving the systems that we have on the farm that we have,
wow.
and feeling like a valued employee, like that word that keeps coming up. And
Does keep coming up. And I mean, I'm not joking about saying I would love to have him on because he is creating that environment. Now, he's got really talented, skilled, intelligent women farmers under him who are able to make that system work. Because if he had
mhm.
a bunch of people who didn't care about what they were doing, yeah, I'm looking at the clock too. They would not, this system would not work the same way.
Mhm.
But there is something about the leadership that enables this kind of a culture. So,
Yeah, which is funny because again, he'll hate hearing me talk about him, and like, he's like, I'm not going to come on it, like,
that's because
because
he's
again, when
humble.
someone is humble, they don't want to, But it really does make a difference. And I will say, I've been very lucky to work with. I've had really great bosses throughout, and I think that has also enabled me to get to where I am, where I've even when I was 25, like, or I
Yeah.
was always treated like a valued member of the team, that was
Mhm.
I like that I was worth mentoring, that this was a career that was worth doing. Um, and and as I've gotten older and heard from a lot of other folks that either have decided to leave or have had more complicated experiences, that's not always the norm.
No,
Um, it can be really complicated between farm owners and employees, and not everyone who is farming, it is their long-term goal, and
right.
that's totally fine. So trying to figure out potentially how to manage people who are just doing a summer job over college, or like just kind of curious for a few years, or the people who say this is what I'm going to do forever, there's a
Yeah.
wide range of who those people are and maybe how you invest in them and how you still make sure everybody's having a positive
Yeah.
experience, because it's a long summer if there's a lot of conflict and if people are not feeling good about what they're doing. Um,
Yeah, yeah, and I really appreciate what you just, I mean, so much of what you said I appreciate, but what's sticking in my mind at this moment is the idea of there being different types of employees and
mhm,
different ways of investing in those
yeah,
employees. And I would like to take that even a step further and saying there are different types of employers.
yes,
So there are some employers who are, and I'm thinking back to your educational
mhm,
background, there are some employers who just love to teach people
mhm,
how to do things and how to
mhm,
be in the world. And so those types of people are going to do really well even with the short term laborers, as long as the short term laborers are willing to learn something,
yeah, mhm,
but they want to nurture them along. They're willing to put up with their beginning foibles
mhm,
and so that's going to be a place where maybe you start with those high schoolers and maybe you cultivate relationships so that they do work on the summers through college and
mhm,
they might not stay for an entire lifetime, but they'll be good, reliable help that you have
mhm,
been able to cultivate because you respected where they were, they respected who you were, like,
mhm,
and you've got people that are able to take really experienced people and not feel threatened by their expertise
mhm,
and to be willing to grow and learn along with them. And they're going to take a different type of employee. And I think it's really important for us as business owners, farm owners, to do a really good inventory of ourselves, maybe a harsh inventory, and say, how am I good as a manager and how am I not good? Like, what are the skills I really bring to this managerial role? And maybe you don't have those managerial skills. Like, there are some
yeah,
farmers who are not good managers. I would
mhm,
argue there are probably many farmers who are not good managers because they're good farmers. They're good
yeah,
doers. And
mhm,
so, if you're not a good manager, you either don't hire help and you stay small, or you get somebody in there who is a good manager that you can
mhm,
work with and trust. And that brings its whole other structural thing. But, I also look at that as even your business planning, like getting
yeah,
together with your employees and saying, we're talking about the farm as a unit and you are part of the decision-making process, he might not, again, you might say, hey, what if we did no-till on this section? He might be like, I'm not learning no-till. I don't feel like doing that. It
mhm,
ain't happening. In
mhm.
which case, okay, fine. He doesn't have to do it. But you've had the opportunity to speak it, and maybe he'll say, you know what? Those onions are a problem. Is there a no-till solution to the onions? And that's probably the hardest thing to go no-till. Leave it to me to pick a really tough crop that would go no-till. But people do all
Yeah,
kinds of things. And so if there's an alternate approach, you can discuss that. And I would like to kind of tie this back to the mediation that
mhm,
this might be a really good place for farmers to use ag mediation for business planning or, a consultant
mhm,
like me who does that, but
yeah,
somebody who is skilled at leading those conversations. Because if you're not accustomed to doing them, it can be really scary. So to have somebody to model it for you the first few times and
mhm.
learn those skills, totally valuable.
Yeah, because like it is a skill. Like just like we're going in and learning greenhouse management or pest management,
You're
it's
not born with it. Most people
no.
are not
And
born with it.
and we expect, and farmers are like the ultimate Renaissance people, right? Where we're carpenters and we're electricians and we're this and we're also expected to know how to have like, a conversation with an employee in a way that feels good when each of us is so different. Like my conversational style is going to be like, let's get cozy, I need cookies, like how are you feeling about this year? And not everyone is going to talk like that. You don't need to talk like that, but
No.
what is the style that works for you on your farm so people feel good. And that is something that you can learn, whether that is with a farm coach like you, or
Yeah.
through a mediator, or through other mentors. If there is a farmer that
Mm.
you are like, man, they are keeping their staff every year, and like, what are they doing?
Yeah, how
Like,
do they do that? Because that's
yeah,
that's super, super like I'm
yeah,
that is one of the reasons why I was like, man, Steve's got to have some really good insights into this that he probably
yeah,
doesn't even realize he has. Like he might
yeah.
just need people to ask the right questions to be like,
Right. And people,
how do you do that?
exactly.
And I ask those questions.
Yeah. And people will share the same way, where you're like, hey, what were you doing for your fertility for your tomatoes this year? That people are so, farmers are so generous with their knowledge and their time. Like, I've never ever met a farmer who was like, that's proprietary like information. They are just like, let me tell you, here's exactly what variety I grew. Here's this, even if they don't know exactly how to tease it out, like maybe need someone to ask them, they'll do their best to just say like, hey, I really looked for this kind of person with this level of experience. We checked in the beginning of the year, like they will tell you what they did to
Right.
try, even if they don't 100% know,
Yeah.
they'll do their
Yeah.
best to share that information with
Yeah,
you.
and you don't have to, as a different type of farmer, you don't have to replicate that exactly. But
Yeah.
it's like anything else. Like you learn how a lot of different people do it, and then you tweak it and you make it your
Mhm.
own, and you use your expertise and your passions, and you can meld all that together and really can create a farm life that works for you. So, oh, I'm looking at this and I'm
I
like, but we have a few minutes, and I'm going to use this strategically because I am still curious about that whole how the farm day ends at 2:30.
Mhm.
So if you could give me in like 5 minutes how that works, like what does it look like for just a work day? Give people a schedule, give us an idea of what you're growing, all in 5 minutes. You can do that, right, Stacy?
Okay. Great. So we're 40 hours a week. And I will say that my boss does a lot on the weekends. So I think that that is the way that we stay ahead, is that um, the kids are with their mom on the weekends. So
Okay.
he has the time on the weekends to be like, okay, I'm going out on the tractor for 6 hours or whatever it is. So that's his catch up time.
Yep. So
Um,
he's not 40 hours a week.
no. So the rest of us are. Yeah. And like, even if Steve's done at 2:30, we might be going until 3 or 3:30. We just know what our job is to do until our day is done.
Okay.
Um, and we'll stagger depending on what the weather is. We might be like 6 a.m. to 2 or 3 or whatever it is, to try to.
Yeah.
So we're starting early too,
Yes.
to
Yep.
really get in as much as we can.
Yep.
And yeah, and I think we grow year round. So we've got a bunch of tunnels. So we do grow for CSA. We do a winter share. We also sell to other farmers in the area because
Yep.
we grow bulk crops. So we have sweet potatoes and onions, and we have more land than a lot of folks. So farmers will buy from us in the winter months. So I think one thing we've managed to do well is diversify both our income stream and our timing. So it's not like
Mm.
we totally are done, by October. We are able to keep going. Like
Yeah.
our winter CSA starts on Monday. So we had like a break, but like not
Hey,
really. So
but I
yeah,
mean, most other occupations don't take a break in the US either.
yeah,
I mean, if we were
yeah,
in Europe, we'd take a whole month off. But
yeah.
um, but there is a sense in which that is kind of the way that our a typical work schedule would be, is that you
Hmm.
you get a week or two here and there, but you're
Hmm.
pretty much working 5 days a week year round. And so
Yeah.
um there is a rhythm to that that can be more sustainable than those like 16-hour days in the summer that
Yes.
you go straight for 3 months and then you're crashing.
Yes.
Like
Yes. I
there's
notice a
a
big
different
difference.
stress on that. Like I found that with dairy farming, that
Hmm.
the dairy farming was every day, but the labor was different. Like
Hmm.
it was more spread out and more consistent. And so it felt like we had a lot more free time all year round
Hmm.
than when we were vegetable farming exclusively. And that was like, we had the winters off, but it was still really intense. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I
again,
think that helps a lot. Just also just structurally and physically. Like I've noticed as I've gotten older, when if there's like a hard stop in the winter, it's hard to get those like
the
muscles
muscles
and
build back up.
flexibility back. So I'm
Use it or
grateful
lose
that,
it, baby.
yeah, it's so true. So I'm like, okay. So I really like being on that more. Yes, we have those peaks and valleys of labor, but it's not all or nothing. And I think
Yes.
that helps us a lot too.
Oh, I love that. Okay. So thank you for doing that very, and it was exactly 5 minutes. You're amazing. Summary of that. I think that's super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Just so that people can start to see that there are ways that you can do this without killing yourself and without feeling totally stressed out at the end of a season. Like I think the fact that you're saying that even on the hard days, you go home and you're like, that was a good day. Like,
Yeah.
wow,
And it's a
you
long game. Like if even if you're like, okay, right now we're still grinding, but in 5 years from now, I want it to look like this. And what can I do in year one, year two? Like, it's okay if you're still struggling and you're seeing other farmers get their kids off the school bus, but it's the long game. Like,
Yes,
yeah,
yes. And this is where the planning comes in. Okay, I'm gonna
yeah,
slip into coach mode again, but
yeah,
this is where, and guys, it's January. This is the beginning of 2026. It's
yeah.
the perfect time to do it. If you haven't looked at this and set like those 5 and 10 year goals, and then parse those out and say, what do I need to do this year? You can check out this week's newsletter from Penlight for Farmers because I talk about that for myself. Like, what are some of my long-term goals for my business, and how have I set up this year's goals to build off the successes I've had in the past and to move towards where I want to be in the future? And I love that long game, like that long-term planning. It's something that we sometimes struggle with as farmers. And again, there's help there to do that. Like you don't have to be a planning expert because it's
Hmm.
a skill. Again, it's a skill that many of us haven't learned. So,
Hmm.
you know, tap into people who have these skills, who can ask you what you really want and help
Hmm.
you figure out what that looks like.
Hmm.
Um, Stacy, every guest on Food, Flowers, and Fun gets to tell the farmers what one piece of advice you think every farmer should have. So, what is that piece of advice that every farmer should have?
Ooh. Um, you're not alone. Like
Mm.
we end up being so sometimes siloed in our farm, and like it feels impossible to get off farm to like go to a workshop or even get a coffee and walk with your friend. And like that is so important. Like take that time to remember that you're not alone.
I'm gonna leave it right there because seriously, like that was beautiful. Stacy, thank you so, so much. This has
Oh,
been
thank
such a rich
you.
conversation. We've gotten to dig into so much. I loved it. Thank all of you out there, and we will see you next time on Food, Flowers, and Fun. Bye.
How do you multiply by fractions, Mom?
Farmers calling, our show is all done. Goodbye, farewell, so long, adieu. See you next week, same time, same place for Food, Flowers, and Fun. Go in peace. Visit us at www.penlightfarmers.com.